I'm going to speak to you with the same calmness the Dharma brings to a tired heart. Maybe you're not simply exhausted. Maybe you're trapped in a mind that won't stop, in a body that lives in tension, in a breath that forgot how to reach all the way down. You wake up without having truly rested. You move through the day on autopilot, and when night arrives, your body feels heavier than the day itself. You keep going because you have to, but inside, something has slowly hardened. In Buddhism, this isn't called weakness, it's called a lack of mindfulness. When the mind lives scattered, clinging to thoughts, worries, and expectations, the body learns to carry that clinging as if it were a constant weight. That is upadana, holding on, even to fatigue, even to the idea that this is just who I am now. You look for relief in small things, more stimulation, more attempts to control, even brief moments of calm that never quite take root. But the fog returns because the root is still there. The Buddha taught that when the mind doesn't rest in the present, the breath becomes shallow, and when the breath shortens, the body goes into defense, not because something is wrong, but because connection has been lost. That's why the path doesn't begin by demanding more energy. It begins by returning to the breath, anapanasati, observing the breath exactly as it is without correcting it, without using it as a tool, simply living inside it. Breathe with me for a moment and notice how, when attention returns to the body, something begins to loosen. Maybe you're not weak, maybe you're clinging, and when that clinging releases even a little, the body stops screaming and begins, little by little, to heal from the inside. Let me tell you a Zen story, simple as water, yet deep as silence. One day, a student came to a master's home. His face was tight, his shoulders tense, his heart full of questions. He had read books, tried methods, searched everywhere for answers, yet he still felt empty. He bowed respectfully and said, "Master, I need wisdom. I need a solution. I'm tired. I'm confused." The master watched him without hurry, as if listening not only to words, but to the trembling beneath them. Then he took a teapot, set down 2 cups, and began to pour tea into the student's cup. The student watched the stream fall hot, fragrant, and felt relieved, as if something good was finally arriving. But the master didn't stop. He kept pouring. The cup filled, and the tea began spilling over the edges, overflowing onto the table, dripping like a slow, insistent rain. The student grew uneasy and said, "Master, the cup is already full." The master kept pouring. "Master, please, there's no more room. It's overflowing." Then the master set the teapot down, looked at him with a calmness that felt like a landscape, and said, "That is you. That is your mind. It's so full of thoughts, hurry, anxiety, repeated stories, that even if I bring you the purest answer, it won't be able to enter. First empty, then receive." And in that moment, the student didn't feel shame, he felt truth. A truth that doesn't shout, yet shakes you from within. Because this is the silent tragedy of our time. We want healing, but we arrive with the cup already overflowing. We want peace, but we search for it with a clenched mind. We want rest, but we chase it like another goal. We want something new, without releasing the old. Tell me honestly, how many times have you tried to fill yourself with information when what you really needed was to empty yourself of weight? How many times have you searched for an explanation, a technique, a promise, when what your body was begging for was a pause? Sometimes chronic exhaustion isn't caused by what you do, it's caused by what you carry. And what you carry isn't always visible. They aren't bags in your hands, they're bags in your mind. Thoughts that never switch off, expectations, guilt, comparison, memories that return without permission, fears disguised as responsibility, worries that become habit. And the hardest part isn't that they exist. The hardest part is that you got used to living this way, as if overflowing were normal, as if tension were identity, as if being tired was simply life. But the Zen master didn't say, think less. He said, empty. Because emptying is different. Emptying isn't fighting your thoughts. Emptying isn't forcing yourself to go blank. Emptying is stopping your grip on what you no longer need to hold. Emptying is releasing the cup in your hands and allowing silence to be enough. Emptying is an act of love. And here is the most powerful part. Many people think emptying means losing something, but in reality, emptying means recovering. Recovering inner space, recovering breath, recovering presence, recovering softness. The mind doesn't rest just because the body lies down. The mind rests when you consciously teach it to let go. And one of the oldest, humblest, most sacred ways to do that is the breath. Because the breath is the bridge between what you think and what you feel, between your past and this moment, between fear and calm. The breath doesn't ask you to be perfect. It doesn't demand explanations. It only asks you to return. Return to the body. Return to this moment. Return to the place where life is actually happening. When you breathe with presence, your cup begins to empty. First the hurry empties, then the rigidity, then the inner dialogues that chase you, and suddenly, without realizing it, something appears. Stillness. Not a stillness as the absence of problems, but a stillness as the presence of you. Because you are not the noise in your mind. You are the one who can hear that noise. You are not the exhaustion that dominates you. You are the space where that exhaustion appears, and also where it can dissolve. The story of the full cup is gentle medicine, but real. It reminds you that you don't need more to heal. You need less. Less pressure, less struggle, less running. You need to rest even before you sleep. You need to return to the sacred art of doing nothing for a moment. And I know that can be frightening, because when you stop, sometimes what you've been avoiding rises to the surface. Stored pain, old sadness, fear you've been covering with activity. But something else rises too. Your soul appears, the part of you that has been waiting to be heard. Your heart appears, the part that got used to surviving. A tenderness within you appears that was never lost, only buried under too much noise. And that's why today, I don't want to give you more things to think about. I want to give you space to feel, space to breathe, space to empty. Because only when the cup becomes available again, can life finally fill you with something that doesn't spill over. Peace. In Buddhism, it is said that when the mind is agitated, the body becomes its shadow, and that shadow is heavy, and that shadow hurts. But it can also dissolve. Stop for a moment. Before you continue, breathe. But not the way you always do. Breathe slowly through the nose, with presence, as if each inhale were an offering and each exhale a release. In the Buddhist tradition, conscious breathing is the most direct doorway to calm, because it is the only thing that stays with you from the moment you are born until the moment you leave. You've already taken the first step, and this is where everything begins. So subscribe to this channel, because you're not here to hear simple advice. You're here to awaken something no one ever taught you, your power to heal. Now listen closely. What you're about to discover isn't just an exercise, it's a ritual. A hidden rule many monks have practiced for centuries to restore vital energy when the body feels like it's shutting down from the inside. The masters say, the one who breathes slowly hears their soul. And they also say, the one who breathes with presence heals their inner world. Because in the Dharma, the breath is not just air, it is prana, life energy, the bridge between the invisible and the visible. The monks observed nature. They watched how animals sleep in peace, how trees move without resistance, how a baby breathes from the womb. And they understood something the modern world has forgotten. It isn't fatigue that destroys the body, it's the absence of conscious breathing. When we breathe without awareness, the mind scatters. When the mind scatters, the body wears down. When the body wears down, pain appears, and pain, when it becomes chronic, is a message a message asking for silence, presence, and a new breath. You felt it that moment when you get home and collapse, even though you didn't run a marathon, or when you lay your head on the pillow but your heart is still racing, as if your mind were at war. It's not just stress, it's a subtle imbalance. In Buddhism, it's called inner agitation, an energetic wound that medicine doesn't always know how to name, but that your breathing can soothe. The monks describe it with a powerful image: the breath of the sleeping dragon. It isn't fantasy, it's a symbol of the vital energy that lives at your base, your root, the deepest center of your stability. And that energy gets blocked by fear, toxic thoughts, hurry, and by the modern habit of breathing high and fast, only in the chest, as if you were running even when there is no danger. Now you're going to do something simple but powerful. Sit down, place your feet firmly on the floor, put your right hand on your belly and your left hand on your heart. Close your eyes, and for a few seconds, don't try to control anything. Just listen to the silence between one breath and the next. That silence is your healing space. In Buddhist practice, that small emptiness is sacred because that is where the mind surrenders, and when the mind surrenders, the body begins to repair itself. Remember this: chronic fatigue is often the body's silent cry for a new way of breathing, and you're going to give it that. But not just any breath. The secret rule is simple, but you must follow it with faith and precision. The way you follow a mantra. Make a promise to your body, say it inwardly, in your own language, in your own truth, as a firm intention. I choose to breathe to heal. I choose to return to my body. In Buddhism, intention changes everything, because what you do without intention is automatic, and what is automatic does not heal. If you already feel a gentle warmth, like calm settling in your belly, you're ready. Stay with me, because what comes next can transform your life. Imagine a monk in a temple high in the mountains, surrounded by silence, no screens, no noise, no chaos, only breathing, only life in its purest form. He doesn't try to fight the outer world, he enters his inner world. And everything begins with a rule modern humans have almost forgotten: lengthen your breath until it becomes invisible. The ancient masters said that a long, slow, silent breath is the sign of perfect health, and that a short, loud, rapid breath is the sign of a restless mind and a disoriented body. So today, you are going to reclaim what the world stole from you, your original breath, and you will do it through a clear ritual. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold the air gently for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At the end of the exhale, remain empty for 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds of silence, and repeat this 7 times. Why 7? Because in many Buddhist teachings, 7 symbolizes the complete cycle, wholeness, the passage from ignorance to clarity. 7 cycles. Each cycle is like a wave that cleanses your nervous system, calms your heart, and recharges your vital energy. You don't need to believe in anything, just practice. The body always tells the truth, and your body is going to confirm it. Those signs are not imagination, they are the body waking up. It is the energy of the sleeping dragon, that deep force living inside you beginning to move again, and that is where self-healing begins. And maybe at this point, your mind wants to ask too many questions, because when the body starts to awaken, when energy begins to flow again, an old impulse appears, the impulse to search for a perfect explanation. Why did this happen to me? What caused it? When did it start? What if I'm doing something wrong? What if it doesn't work? What if this isn't it? It's natural. The mind, when it doesn't feel safe, wants control. It wants certainty. It wants the full map before taking a single step. But there is a teaching of the Buddha that cuts through that anxiety with firm compassion, like a light in the middle of smoke. Let me tell you a story known as the poisoned arrow. A man was struck by an arrow. It pierced his body, and the poison began to spread through his blood. His family and friends rushed to help and called a doctor to remove it. But when the doctor approached, the man raised his hand and said, "No, before you take it out, I need to know who shot this arrow." The doctor tried to calm him, but he insisted. Was it a nobleman or a peasant? Was he tall or short? Was he young or old? What was his name? What was his intention? The doctor looked at him urgently, because the poison would not wait. But the man continued, "And I also need to know what kind of wood the arrow was made of, what feathers decorated it, what kind of bow shot it, what string they used, and what poison was placed on the tip. I need to understand everything," the doctor said. "If you keep asking questions, you will die before I can save you. First, we remove the arrow. Then, if there is still time, we will talk." And the Buddha ends the story with a quiet message. There are moments in life when searching for explanations becomes another way of postponing healing. Because pain doesn't need your theory, it needs your presence. And your body, when it is wounded, doesn't ask you to solve the universe. It asks you to remove the arrow. Breathe this with me, very slowly. How many arrows are you still carrying inside, simply because you want to understand too much? How many times have you postponed your rest because you couldn't find the exact reason for your exhaustion? How many times have you delayed your process because you first wanted the perfect answer, the definitive cause, the absolute guarantee? And meanwhile, the poison of stress kept running through you. The poison of tension, the poison of self-demand, the poison of always living on alert. Because poison isn't always something dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's called habit, it's called hurry, it's called hyper-control, it's called sleeping with the body, but not with the soul. It's called smiling on the outside, while inside you're clenching your teeth. It's called surviving. And this is where the story touches the heart. The man wasn't bad, he was human. He was afraid. And when a human being is afraid, they cling to the need to understand in order to feel safe. As if understanding were a lifeline, as if knowing everything could spare you from feeling. But the Buddha reminds us of something we rarely want to accept. There are pains that don't heal through explanations. They heal through small, faithful decisions. They heal through practice. They heal through the courage to do what is simple without dramatizing it, without turning it into a mental labyrinth. That's why you're here. That's why you're breathing. That's why you're returning to your body. Because your healing doesn't depend on discovering every cause with surgical precision. Your healing depends on removing the most obvious arrow today, right here. The arrow of not listening to yourself. The arrow of forcing yourself. The arrow of living as if rest were a luxury. The arrow of believing you always have to handle everything. The arrow of carrying a weight that was never yours. And maybe you ask, how do I remove the arrow? The answer isn't grand, it's humble. You remove the arrow when you breathe before you react. You remove the arrow when you say, today is enough, without guilt. You remove the arrow when you sit for 1 minute and return to your body, even if the mind screams. You remove the arrow when you choose practice over endless analysis. You remove the arrow when you do what you already know is good for you, even if you still don't have all the answers, because the mind will always invent a new question, always. If you give it a reason, it will ask for another. If you give it an explanation, it will demand proof. If you give it a sign, it will want confirmation. And without realizing it, you can spend your entire life waiting for the perfect moment to heal. But the body doesn't live in theories, it lives in now. The body speaks through sensations, vibration, fatigue, short breath, broken sleep, a tight chest, a closed throat, and it also speaks through relief when you finally listen. And so, this story is a direct invitation. Don't turn your healing into an interrogation. Don't turn your rest into an exam. Don't turn your process into a courtroom where you judge yourself every day for not being better. There comes a point where the soul needs tenderness, not more questions. A point where the body needs silence, not more analysis. A point where life tells you, don't wait to understand everything. Start taking care of yourself. Because your energy, that force of the sleeping dragon now beginning to move, doesn't want you to trap it inside concepts. It wants you to accompany it with presence, guide it with gentleness, let it flow without fear. And if today you feel strange things, warmth, vibration, emotions rising, deep fatigue, intense dreams, don't run to find an explanation just to feel safe. First breathe, first feel, first honor it. That is the medicine. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is remove the arrow and allow the body to heal. And when you do, something changes. The mind surrenders a little, the chest opens, the shoulders soften, and then you understand, not with words, but with peace, that you don't need to know everything to heal. You only need to be here. You only need to practice. You only need to return, again and again, to the one place where life does not lie, your breath. You don't need to climb a mountain or become a monk, but you do need to give your breath the respect it deserves every day. Do this for 21 days without failing. In Buddhism, 21 days is a period of transformation, a training of mind and body, a compassionate discipline with yourself, and you will see changes. You will sleep better, the pain will soften, fatigue will turn into steadiness. You won't run from your day anymore, you'll embrace it. And when you breathe with presence again, you'll realize something that was always there. You weren't losing energy, you were losing connection. And connection returns in the same place where everything begins, in a conscious inhale and an exhale that finally lets you release. If you're feeling this already, write it right now in the comments. Because when we name what we're living, the mind stops hiding it and the heart begins to heal right. I choose to breathe, to heal, and to inspire others to do the same, because this world needs more awakened souls and fewer exhausted minds. Remember, you are not broken, you're simply disconnected from your sacred breath, from that invisible thread that links your body to calm, your mind to clarity, to your life to the present. And when you return to that thread every day, you will watch your life begin to reorganize itself around your serenity. Because breathing is not only living, it is regenerating, healing, and being reborn. And the deepest truth is this: breathing doesn't only heal during the day, it heals even while you sleep. And if you want to learn how, stay until the end, because what I'm about to reveal is almost never shared, even within traditional Buddhist circles, because it isn't just a technique, it's a key. It's a door that opens only when you are truly willing to let go. When silence falls and the sun sinks behind the horizon, something sacred opens in the universe. The night is not only for physical rest, the night is a space where your soul can repair itself, but only if you invite it. And the monks knew this, which is why they used a special breathing practice before sleep, a breath not designed simply to fall asleep, but to release what the body has accumulated throughout the day, because true fatigue doesn't come only from the muscles. It comes from what you carry without realizing it, from what you hold in your chest like a stone, from words you never said, suppressed emotions, fears you refuse to feel. And Buddhism teaches that suffering doesn't always come from what happens, but from the attachment to what we don't release. And that's why night breathing begins with a simple, profound principle. Like a koan, you don't sleep to escape the day, you sleep to transform it. And here is the ritual. You can do it lying in bed, right before you close your eyes, like a silent offering to your own body. Lie on your back, place your right hand over your heart and your left hand over your lower belly, that place where your center lives, your root, your stability. Inhale through your nose very slowly for 4 seconds. Then exhale gently for 8 seconds, twice as long as if you were letting go of an entire story in a single breath out. And your mind may ask, why? Because a long exhale activates your parasympathetic system, the natural regeneration system that lowers pressure, calms the mind, and prepares the body for deep sleep. Repeat this 9 times, and at the end of each breath whisper inwardly with humility and firmness, I release what doesn't belong to me. I release what I no longer need. and you will feel something strange but real, a heaviness leaving the belly, a weight dissolving into the pillow, a peace that doesn't come from the outside, but from your own heart. Because in that moment, in that space between waking and sleep, your body enters self-repair mode. And yes, you don't need more supplements, you don't need empty promises. What you need is to breathe in a way your body recognizes as sacred, and the monks would say, at night, the breath is the bridge between the body and the invisible. And you can walk that bridge too. You can go to bed with a heavy heart and wake up light, but only if you breathe with awareness. Don't fall asleep tonight without doing it, even if you're tired, especially because you're tired, because if you want your body to regenerate, it needs your help, it needs your presence. And if you make this practice part of your daily life, you won't have to beg your body to hold on anymore. You won't have to push yourself through anxiety. Your body will continue because it is nourished, honored, and understood. The way you honor a lamp burning in a temple, you don't strike it to make it shine. You protect it from the wind. You feed it with oil. You care for it with patience. Now take a slow breath with me, and as you exhale, feel this truth like a short sutra. You were never far from your healing. It was always there, in your breath. You know, there are truths so simple we forget them, and breathing is one of them. It was the first act you did when you were born, and it will be the last before you leave this world. And yet, in the middle of everything, have you truly breathed? Or have you only survived stressed, clenching your jaw, holding your breath in a world that runs without asking why? The monks had no technology, no machines. They didn't depend on pills or supplements. They had only this breath, and through their breath, they found peace, clarity, and longevity. And that isn't a miracle, it's a discipline, a daily tenderness, a humble practice repeated with devotion. And if you practice what you've just learned for 21 days, without failing like someone who returns each morning to the same path to clear it, this is what will happen. Your sleep will become deep and restorative. Your silent pains will fade without explanation. Your energy will return. But this time from within, your face will brighten. Your gaze will change, and others will feel it. They will sense it in your presence, and they will ask you, what's different about you? And you'll be able to answer simply, without pride, with truth. I'm finally breathing.